Hate speech can lead to conflict and violence. So we've been asking, is there a peace speech that generates and sustains peaceful cultures? Peace has often been studied in a negative way as the absence of conflict, but there's a growing effort to understand positive peace, the political, economic, and social systems that sustain peaceful societies. So the traditional paradigm is that we start with data, and us human beings then think this through and generate a hypothesis, a theory, maybe even in physics equations, and then we test that against new data. A new paradigm has been to take as many samples from the real world as possible and then input that into a machine learning or artificial intelligence machine that learns from examples how its inputs are connected to its outputs, and then it tests those outputs again against new data. Now, in this new paradigm, the machine learning model may find new things that we did not know were important. This is not a theory-driven hypothesis regression analysis. It is data-driven. Now, this new paradigm can fail if the artificial intelligence is not smart enough, whatever that means, to understand how the input should connect with the output, or it can fail if it is not given sufficient examples to learn how the input should be connected to the output. So this gives us two different ways to look for peace speech. We could hypothesize which words are different in conflicts and peace, and then search for the frequency of those words in the data. And the new paradigm, what we can do is train a machine learning model on examples. It then tells us which are the most important words it's using to classify a country as low or high peace. And we did this new paradigm and found that it has led to some interesting and perhaps surprising results. We used 3 different data sources from news on the web, LexisNexis, and data we had scraped from Twitter and local newspapers. Just very overall, each of these data sources has about 1 million articles spread over about 10 years over about 20 countries. So in the article we published in PLOS ONE last November, we started with 5 traditional peace indices. We then rescaled them so they all run from 0 to 100, and then looked to see what the consensus of those peace indices are for countries that are peaceful or countries that are not peaceful. Then we can, from that, develop machine learning models using logistic regression, random forest, and then that machine learning model tells us what are the highest feature importance words that the model is using in order to differentiate different levels of peace. And we can also use it to generate quantitative levels of peace for different countries. So this is what we found for the low peace countries. These were the most important words in the model deciding whether it should classify a country as low or high peace. And it's a lot of things about government and state and politics and the structure of what the country is like. And this is kind of what we expected. But we expected the high peace words to be dominated by things that we learned from social psychology or political science about negotiation or working well together or doing things like that. And in fact, that's not what the machine learning model told us. It said in these newspaper articles the words that indicate peace are really things of daily activity, what your home or children or sports or games or work is like. And a lot of words about time. Very often when people think about time, especially the future, they always think it's going to be better than it is now. So the words that we found were not the words that we were expecting that are important in classifying a country as high peace. This trained machine learning model also gives us a quantitative measure of the level of peace. And this quantitative peace index, which is shown in this column here, is actually a good match to the traditional peace indices. But what we're doing here in principle can be measured in real time from only the news sources. Now, this is different than the traditional peace indices, which are measured either quarterly or annually and require many country levels of statistics and extensive surveys and expert opinions. So let me be very clear that these two measurements are measuring very different things. The traditional measurements are using all kinds of theories about what's important, and they're using lots and lots of data. That's not what the machine learning model is doing. What it's really doing is like a tell in poker. When you sit opposite your friend on the other side of the table and he's looking at his cards and smiling, and you know your friend, if he's smiling, he's probably bluffing. And the tell here is that the machine learning model has figured out what are the words and topics that are most associated with peaceful countries. And yet that tell is quantitatively really close to what some measure of combining all these peace indices are. We also clustered those individual words into topics. This shows that the government views in low peace countries are dominating the conversation, whereas in high peace countries, this means sort of average news reports or things about film or sports are much more important. Another interesting thing we found is that in low peace countries, the diversity of words is much more limited. They use much fewer different words than what we see in the higher peace countries. So the overview of our whole peace speech project is that we started off doing word counts to differentiate between higher and lower peace countries. Then we clustered those words into topics, and we could see that the words in the higher peace countries are really dominated by activities of daily life, whereas the lower peace countries are dominated by governance and politics. We then had some ground truthing workshops, 4 of them, where we had journalists from all over the world review what we were doing, and they had some very interesting insights into this. They liked the words that we had come up that differentiate higher and lower peace, and they told us things, for example, the reason why government topics dominate in the lower peace countries, especially in authoritarian countries, is because those media have become just the government's mouthpiece. But we're interested in going beyond words and topics, so now what we've been doing is analyzing whole sentences together in articles. So what we can do is take a piece of text and convert that to a series of numbers, where each number represents the value in a different dimension in a hyperdimensional space. This is called an embedding. We found that training the machine learning model on these embeddings was much more efficient, meaning we could do it with a lot less data than either the topics or the words. But what we're really interested in are these social processes that these linguistic differences between the lower and high peace countries represent. So what we're now using is GTP4 and a retrieval augmented generation system. What that means is we can have a database so that we add that data to the prompts into the large language model to help focus it at least on the subject area that we're interested in. And we've already had some good luck doing this, measuring positive and negative intergroup reciprocity in articles. So that means that if a group outside of yours does something good to the group that you're in, do you respond in a nice way or in a nasty way? We've also been doing measures to see which is more important in making this classification. Is it the content of what's in the articles, or is it the tone in which the articles are written? That is, what is more important? Is it what is being said or how it is being said? And we're in the middle of doing that. And we're also looking forward to doing tightness, looseness, which is a classification developed by Michelle Gelfand, and has a lot of usefulness in terms of tying in with other aspects of society. So in summary, machine learning and or artificial intelligence can tell us things that we were not looking for because it has learned those things from the examples that we gave it. This is a different paradigm than hypothesis-driven regression analysis. Machine learning and artificial intelligence is data-driven. And some of the earlier part of this work is described in our +1 article, which appeared in November of last year. On my YouTube channel, which is Larry PhD, I have some things like a non-technical introduction to artificial intelligence, so you can actually have some qualitative understanding of how these systems work. Some other lectures about AI. This work has involved a number of different contributors and has received funding both internally from within Columbia, as well as more recently from the Toyota Research Institute. Thank you very much.